Hello, my name is Cian. I'm one of the career consultants here at the university. How today's session is going to work is that we've got Will and Rowan who are going to be speaking to us in just a few minutes' time. And Will's going to talk first, and then we're going to go straight to Rowan, and then I'm going to appear back up, and we're going to do a bit of a question and answer session in about 15 to 20 minutes' time. With that, I think I'm going to introduce Will first of all. Will is one of our graduates from the university, and he is currently working as an audit assistant.
Okay, so yeah, as Cian said, I'm Will. I'm from the Isle of Man, and I just graduated last year with a BSc in theoretical physics. So I'm not sure if any of you are going into the physics sort of streamline of the degree, but it's a very interesting one to get started on. I was quite lucky when I started because it was a really small course. It was brand new, so it had been on hold for about 15 years. I think we were the second year since the restart, so there was a lot of resources available to us, really easy access to the lecturers and everything. So it's quite a small group of people. So it was really sort of easy to get on with the work because you just got everyone to talk to. And the labs had been brand new. Just had a brand new renovation, sorry. And there was dedicated space for sort of the maths and physics students within those. And a lot of the lecturers are sort of at the forefront of their areas of research. So you've got sort of access to really sort of brand new stuff all the time. There's laser labs, there's the cryogenic lab downstairs, there's all sorts. And you can tailor your degree after the first year. Everyone has to do the same degree in first year, which includes 20 credits of labs spread over the whole year, or 40 credits or something like that. And then following your first year, you can change and go into theoretical physics or astrophysics, or I'm not sure what they offer now, but it was only those two when I was doing it. So yeah, I chose to move on to theoretical, which removed the labs because I wasn't the biggest fan of those. But I had to do more fluid dynamics and stuff like that, which led me into my dissertation project in final year, which was in computational fluid dynamics with Carlo Berenghi, and he's a really interesting guy if you ever get to work with him. He loves his fluids. But yeah, more about sort of the university experience now is because I live on an island, I don't really have anyone that I went to uni with, so I just got thrown into halls with 7 strangers, which sounds like hell, but it was a really good opportunity for me to sort of have a fresh start. 5 of those are now my best friends, and we're going on holiday next week, so we really do get sort of friends for life from university. No one's really joking when they say that. It's a really good way to get a good social life, and so you can balance your degree. If you're good at balancing, you can get a good degree, you can get good social life, really great mates. There's plenty of societies that uni has to offer. So I joined the running society and was quite heavily involved with sort of helping out with organising the socials and organising the runs and organising every event that we did, which was quite interesting. It's quite a different sort of thing to do when you're organising the events rather than just going to them and having the drinks. I'd recommend sort of doing what I did and just sort of saying yes to every opportunity that you get given at uni, because it can open up so much for you, sort of in terms of academia and in terms of just sort of meeting new people and having new experiences. And you've got so much time to sort of get on with enjoying yourself and learning the most you can. And yeah, since graduating university, I got a 2-1 in theoretical physics, and I applied to work at KPMG, which is one of the top 4 worldwide accounting firms. So I now work there, back over on the Isle of Man anyway, in the office over here. And I'm carrying on with education. I'm doing the ACA qualification, which is run by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales. It's quite a tough job, but it's very enjoyable. I've got a good group of people around me, so really supportive environment. But the degree really sort of opened up so many opportunities for me, because I can carry on with this, and then what my long-term goal is to go into actuarial science, which is sort of statistical, mathematical sort of insurance work basically. And you get so many sort of good career opportunities from the degree, any sort of STEM degree, sort of maths and physics in particular. And yeah, some of my friends from university, they're doing internships at sort of the central laser facility down in Oxford, which is really interesting. And then some people doing data security and data science, and it's all just, everyone's done sort of really good things ever since graduating university, and it's been a great experience, sort of in more ways than one. So definitely recommend university if you're on the fence. But yeah, I think that's as much as I can really say from my point of view. So I'll probably hand over to Rowan now. He's got a mathematical background, I believe. So.
Well, thanks, Will. Yeah, so my name's Rowan. I'm 27 years old. I joined Newcastle University in 2013, and I studied the 4-year integrated maths and stats course at Newcastle. I received an offer for AAB from Newcastle University, and then I got into the university on a BB from A levels. So I was at Newcastle University for 4 years, and not to repeat what Will said, but it was honestly such a fantastic experience. Like, I had such a good time at university, and I also made friends for life. One of my friends is actually moving into my house next week with me, which I'm looking forward to. So it'd be really cool. But yeah, you meet so many great people at university, and you will honestly, they will stick with you for life. And one of the best things about studying maths at Newcastle was the Maths Society. So it was a great way to meet loads of new people, loads of people in your year on your course, in the years above and below. And one of the most helpful things about that was when you're doing your assignments, you've got someone in the year above to ask because they've already done it and they can help you. And they've all been there, done that, and know what the tricks are and how to help you get the best marks you can in your degree. And it's such a great, friendly atmosphere, both the students and the lecturers. I also had Carlo for fluid dynamics when I was studying, and he is a character, to say the least, as are most of the maths lecturers. I think once you get to that stage into your maths career, you have to be a little bit interesting, we'll say. But yeah, so I was at university for 4 years, and then my first job out of university was actually a slightly unusual one. So I ended up working for Newcastle Students' Union for a year as a sabbatical officer. So my role was the education officer. And basically what that role is you don't apply for the role, you get elected into it by the students. So you run a campaign, you make a campaign video, and you get people to know your name. And basically when voting opens, they vote for you to get the role. So I got the role, and my job was to represent the academic interests of the university students to the university. So what that involved was a lot of meeting with the very, very high management level people at the university, and trying to improve and put forward the students' voice to them when it came to decision making for the university. So it was a really cool experience because you saw how the university worked at a level that you just wouldn't ever see elsewhere. And sort of at that stage in my career as well, go to any other business, you wouldn't see it at that. You wouldn't see how a business works at that level. So that was a really great opportunity, and it's open to anyone, any student. So I'd recommend going for that if you get the opportunity. I got to go to Malaysia and Singapore as part of my year working at the Students' Union because I don't know if you know, but Newcastle University has 2 campuses out there. So we got to go meet the students out there, see those campuses. It was a really, really great trip. So I definitely recommend going there if you can. And then, so that was only a fixed term role. I could only do it for a year. So at the end of that year, I started applying for jobs. I wanted to stay in the Northeast. I'm from Yorkshire originally, but I really liked Newcastle, fell in love with the city, coming here pretty much from the first open day. So I knew I wanted to stay up here. So I cast my net quite wide. I applied for a lot of jobs, sort of focused around data analytics, data science, data insights, basically roles that involved maths and coding, because they were sort of my two main strengths and interests. So I threw out a lot of applications, heard not very much, got some interviews, got some rejections, as seems to be the case when you're job hunting at first. Don't get discouraged, just keep going. You'll get one eventually. And I got an interview at a company called Partnerize, which is just on the quayside in Newcastle. So it was ideal. And in the interview, I was given a task, and my task to do before the second interview, I basically answered it using all my knowledge from one of the modules that I studied at university. So if I hadn't done the degree, I wouldn't have known how to do it. so it was ideal, and it seemed to go well. They offered me the job, and so what PartnerEyes does is it's something called a market affiliate tracking company. So the example I always use is when you want to go on holiday, you'll go on Skyscanner and you'll say you want to fly from Newcastle to Berlin, and then Skyscanner will give you a load of different options for flights. So you can fly with Ryanair, Jet2, EasyJet. You select Ryanair, it's the cheapest, and then you buy the flight. So Skyscanner gets a little portion of the sale from Ryanair for sort of driving that sale. And what PartnerEyes does is it tracks the movement between the affiliate and the partner. And my role there was a lot of work with the partners, so with the Ryanairs, with Nike, with Lululemon. We would present a lot of information on how their affiliates were performing, who was driving a lot of sales, who perhaps wasn't driving a lot of sales, how they could potentially encourage affiliates to sort of perform better. So I got quite a lot of interaction with some really interesting companies throughout that role. And I was there for about a year. And then after that year, I realized that it probably wasn't sort of the right area that I wanted to be in. I wanted to be in an area which was a bit more coding focused, more focused on the mathematical and statistical modeling side of things. So I started looking for new jobs, and I got an interview at a company in Durham called Atom Bank. Now, Atom Bank is a challenger bank, which is basically, they're different to like your NatWests and your Lloyds and your Santanders. They don't have branches on the high street. You can't walk into them. It's just all app based. So you probably have heard of like Monzo and Starling and Revolut. So Atom is the same as that. Just when I worked there, Atom didn't offer current accounts. They only offered mortgages and loans to businesses. So you might not have heard of them. But I spent 2 years there, and my role there was something called risk forecasting. So I was a data scientist, but I was doing risk forecasting, which was basically assessing the bank's risks on the loans that they have out at the moment. So the mortgages and the business loans. I was in charge of maintaining and running and improving and reviewing a model for the bank, which basically determines off the whole loan book how much money the bank can expect to lose based off their risk. So you feed in a load of data and it pops out a little money number at the end about how much the bank could expect to lose based on the loans that they have. So that was really interesting, completely different to what I'd done in my previous role. There's a lot of financial mathematical understanding and modeling and forecasting, and also you saw a different side of things. So you saw the regulatory side of things. So reading and understanding about all the laws and rules that govern banks and how they can behave and how they can lend money and stuff like that. So it's really, really interesting. And again, something I've never ever seen before. So it's a really great learning opportunity, and I learned a lot. And it was great to be there when I was buying my house because I got to see how a bank operates from the inside and understood the sort of decision-making process, so I could understand how my mortgage process was working. So it's really cool. And then, so currently I work for the Lego Group. So it was a bit of an accident that I fell into this role. So I literally just saw an advert for a data scientist role at the Lego Group while I was still working at Atom, and I just thought I'll just throw my name in the hat. It's I wasn't really expecting much. I mean, it's Lego. It's a big global company. You'd think there'd be loads of competition for it. So I wasn't really expecting much, but I got an interview and I got another task that I was able to solve using stuff that I'd done in my course. They were impressed with how I'd answered the task, and I kind of played up how much I liked Lego growing up and now. So I think that probably swayed the interview a little bit for me, being a bit of a Lego nerd, and they offered me the job, and I've been here for about a year now, and it's such a fantastic company to work for. It's such a great environment. It's very relaxed. Everyone's really lovely, and you get to do some really cool stuff. Like you get free Lego, you get discounts when you're buying Lego. You get to in May I went to Billund in Denmark, which is where the headquarters of the Lego Group is, and they've built this fantastic new office building. It's incredible. It's huge. It's got massive Lego statues everywhere you go. Like there's baristas, coffee shops, and a massive canteen and a gym and like a cinema room, sports hall, and everything. It's insane. I would love to go out and work there, but I'm based in the London office. So maybe one day I'll get to rebase to the Denmark one. But yeah, it was just a really cool place to be. And it's been a great opportunity for me, and I'm very, very happy. But I'd never have got to where I am now without learning what I did at university. It's been so helpful, and it's been pretty much key to getting every single one of my jobs so far. So yeah, I couldn't recommend it enough. And if you are on the fence about university, hopefully push you towards the side of yes. But yeah, so that's my career so far. Hopefully there's a few more years in it. But yeah, if there's any questions, I guess, for me or Will, I think now's the time, but I'll hand you back over.
Thank you both very much, Will and Rowan. Super interesting. I do love the reaction you've got from the Lego. Obviously, a few Lego fans from people. But in the meantime, while people are thinking of their questions, just for both of you two, for Rowan and for Will, thinking back where you both were kind of several years ago before you even got to university, how much did you actually know about what it was like, and was it different to what you thought it would be? Will, if you want to go first.
Yeah, well, I actually didn't want to go to university at all, really. It was only the start of my final year at sixth form that I was like, I really don't know what I want to do. I was like, do I join the RAF or do I just go get a job or what? So I was just like, well, I'll give university a try because it can't hurt to make a few more friends and have a different experience. So I applied sort of on the final day of UCAS to a few universities, and then I got my first choice. But yeah, it was really different sort of what I expected it was going to be. It was I thought it was just going to be work, but it was definitely more work, play.
Rowan, what about yourself?
So I think I'd always planned on going to university because it was kind of the schools I went to. It was what you were told you had to do. So I kind of thought it was something that I should do. But once I came up to Newcastle for an open day, and came and saw the Maths and Stats department, saw the university, saw the city for the first time, I kind of fell in love with it. I was like, I know this is what everyone's been telling me to do it, but now it's something that I really want to do. And I'd not had any family who'd gone to university before, so I didn't really know too much what to expect. I mean, I'd seen, I guess, I don't know if you guys have seen programs like Fresh Meat or anything like that. So that was my knowledge of university life. But yeah, I got to university and it was different to what I was expecting. There was a lot of work, but there's a lot of playtime as well. So you do get the best of both sides of things. The only thing I'd say is just make sure you do your work. Otherwise, you kind of waste your time at university. Because even when you do work, there's still lots of time to enjoy yourself and have fun and make friends and do all sorts of other things. So it's definitely doable to have both sides of the coin. And I couldn't recommend it highly enough.
Excellent. Ellie, you want to just unmute yourself and ask your question?
I know that personally want to go into theoretical physics, but this question could be both of you. Did you go into your degree knowing what job you wanted to come out with, or did that kind of like come in the final years? Because I have no idea what job to go into, but like Will said, he went into finance, and like you'd think that was unrelated to physics. So I was just wondering if that came in the later years.
Yeah, it's definitely unrelated. But having the background in physics is really, really useful for a lot of the stuff, because you can start to see sort of different trends in especially in financial models that clients put together. Like we can really analyze them and see sort of, is it making sense? Is it actually adding up the way they expect it's meant to be adding up? But I really didn't know what I wanted to do at university. I thought about going into patent law for a time, and then I was like, no, that's probably too much writing for me. I like maths and numbers. So then I started looking at actuarial science, and when I was applying for it, obviously the pandemic had just sort of kicked off. So everyone stopped hiring and there was no internships going or anything. They were just online based. So I threw a few applications out there for a few accountancy firms because I was like, that's a safe thing to fall back on. And I got a job. So I was like, I'll do that, get another 3 years under my belt, get a qualification that's paid for. And then if I still fancy it after, I'm going to move back into actuarial science now that there's a bit more going on. But you definitely didn't know what I wanted to do at the start of uni. Probably only knew sort of a year ago.
Rowan, do you have anything you want to answer to that, add into that?
I was exactly the same. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I went to uni. So that was another motivation to go to uni. Give me time to decide and figure out and see what's available for my sort of skill set. I kind of only really knew what I wanted to do going into my third year of university, because I did an internship between my second and third year, which was a lot of coding, and I discovered that I really liked it and really enjoyed it. So I wanted to go into something that was sort of the hybrid of coding and maths, and data science was that sort of role for me. But yeah, going into uni, I had no idea.
And just to add something else to that is that it is really common for students to go in, do a degree that they really enjoy, and then get to the end of it and go, do you know what, actually that was fun, but actually I'm going to look at other careers. So you might decide, you enjoyed what you studied and it was great, but actually you want to go and test yourself with something else, or so along the way. Will and Rowan talk about their extracurricular activities that they get involved in. Sometimes that can pull you in a career direction as well. It doesn't always have to be it doesn't have to be as linear as perhaps I think sometimes it can appear. Oliver, you asked a question, what topics in maths tend to be the most useful to you in your careers? Rowan, if you want to go first for that one.
Yeah, so my degree was quite focused on statistical maths. That's what I specialized in when I went into my fourth year. And it's kind of tied in very much to the work that I do. So any of the statistical modules that you'll do at uni will be useful. Some a lot more useful than others. So within data science, the ones that tend to be the most useful are the modules that focus on statistical modeling, which can be used for all sorts of forecasting, and it's the basis for machine learning, if you've heard about that, which is sort of very key in my role, and it all forms the sort of basic building blocks for that. So university is a great place you learn the basics. You also learn some really crazy advanced stuff, but then once you get into the real working world, probably won't use too much of the advanced stuff, but if you've got the fundamentals, you'll learn the stuff on the job from there. So I find university was great for forming a basic understanding of the area that I want to be in, and then you learn on the job, you learn the specifics.
Will, there's a specific question for you about your qualification that you're doing, the ICA EW qualification, and what skills does it take for you to go for this qualification?
Yeah, so the ICAW offer the ACA qualification, which is the Associate Chartered Accountant. And basically, it's just if you're pretty good at maths, you can go for it. It's not been too complex yet. I've done all the certificate level, which is the first level of the 3 that you do. I'm midway through professional at the moment, and then next year it's advanced, and then I'm qualified after that. So it's a lot of the stuff that you learn at uni. You learn a lot of like sort of the simple maths that you've taken from A level. You make that more advanced in your core maths modules, and then you apply that to all these different topics such as fluid dynamics that both Rowan and I studied, and it's just really useful to sort of have that ground understanding in how the maths works and stuff. And I'm a bit of a level above some of the people that have come straight from school that are doing the qualification. Not to say they can't do it, but it's just having that background in maths or physics, it really sort of sets you a level above, because you don't have to do the sort of the heavy lifting once again.
We had a question here about your job interviews. So, you mentioned that your uni work was useful in job interviews. How do you go about keeping on top of the things you learned at uni, or does it come second nature? with regards kind of preparing for your job interviews, I presume, and kind of putting those examples forward? If either one of you want to jump in there.
Yeah, so I'd just say to start with, you won't remember everything you learn at university off the top of your head. Especially the maths course, you do a lot of stuff. It's very varied, especially in your first 2 years. You'll do 24 different modules, so you're not going to remember all that off the top of your head. What the best thing is some bits will stick, and you'll know the fundamentals. So when I went to do my interviews, I knew I knew how to solve the problem. I couldn't remember off the top of my head exactly the steps that I needed to do, so I could go back. So I went back and looked at my uni notes, but I had that baseline of, I know roughly what needs to be done, and I've done it before. I just go back and look at my notes, or you can look online, because the internet has everything. And it's just, you've had that basic understanding once, so it'll come back. You just need to remind yourself. So as long as when you were studying it originally, you retained something, you retain the knowledge of what it's used for, then you've kind of got that for life. You won't remember exactly every step that you need to do to solve every problem, but you'll know where to look. And that's kind of the key with my degree, with my job, is I can't remember how to code everything, but I know roughly what I need to do, and check Google, and Google will tell me exactly how to do it, because someone will solve the problem. That's the key for my role. But you wouldn't have had that basic understanding without doing the degree. You definitely, like Will says, you get a couple of steps ahead of people coming just straight from school into jobs, because they haven't seen the stuff that you've seen.
Will, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think basically just the stuff you find interesting at uni is going to stick with you forever, because like I could still rattle off most of my dissertation to you now, but it doesn't mean I understand anything about electromagnetism, so I didn't like that very much. So you could talk to me about that and I wouldn't have a clue what you're saying. But if you talk to me about stuff that I did sort of in the modules that I did enjoy, like I could talk to you all day about it. Like it stays with you. You're not going to forget it. Like you might forget some of the complex stuff, but so you're not going to forget how to do sort of like chain rule of differentiation if you're doing that sort of stuff with your degree. It's just, it'll stick with you. So
Will, another question for you. When did you know you wanted to do theoretical physics instead of physics? Was there a particularly bad practical?
It wasn't about the practicals being bad or good necessarily, because I know some of my friends absolutely loved the practicals, but for me, I just didn't get on with them. Like I was doing fine in them, but it's just, they weren't very sort of interesting to me. Some people like absolutely love them because you're proving some constants or something, so it really is sort of interesting physics, but I was more interested in the fluid dynamics stuff, and there wasn't really many fluid practicals, so I was like, I'll go do some math modules instead. But no, they are really good practicals. Like in first year I had a blast doing them, but I was like, I'll probably be more interested by fluid dynamics.
Ellis, thank you for your answer. And Ellis asks, do either of you get to travel much on your current jobs?
I know Rowan said he went to Denmark or something, but I haven't yet. But we always have, because it's a global firm that I work for, we always have trainings like in Austria or in America or sometimes in the Caribbean. Like we've got clients out there as well, so sometimes you have to go out and do a bit of work for them over there. So it's I know a lot of people that I do work with have been abroad, but since COVID, it's kind of dampened down a little bit. But that's all on the rise again now. So it's a really fun job. Got a lot of plans in the future to go very far. So
yeah, so at Lego, yeah, because our team is split mainly between Denmark and the UK. Obviously in COVID there wasn't much traveling, so I can only go off what happened before COVID, but I wasn't there for it. But you'd usually go between the offices 3 or 4 times a year, for more than anything to like meet the rest of your colleagues like face to face, which was really nice. So now that things have opened back up, we're going to be traveling a lot more between the offices. I think the Danish team are coming to London in September, which will be great to see them all in person again. So yeah, there's a reasonable amount of traveling.
We've got another question here. I know Will said earlier to never say no to anything at uni. Do you think taking part in these sorts of academic and research opportunities would be more beneficial than getting a basic part-time job, such as working at a cafe, etc.? Or do you feel like you could have juggled both? I'm trying to work out how working would work at uni and what sort of experience employers are expecting you to have after graduating. Either one of you want to jump into that one?
At university, I didn't actually have a job. When I was coming home for summer and Christmas and Easter and stuff, I was working at a restaurant over here, and that's how I sort of kept my money coming in. But I know my housemate, she actually got a job at a maths tuition place down the road from us, so she was kind of carrying on with her degree because she was doing psychology with some maths elements, and she was teaching high school maths for people sort of after school, so she was able to sort of keep an academic as such job alongside the degree, but she was also managing to sort of say yes to the social events and maybe be a bit tired at work the next day. Also said yes to work in some pretty sort of intense academic things, like she did a stint with the prison in Durham. She was doing some criminal psychology, and she was able to sort of work with prisoners up there, and it was sort of quite an interesting thing for her. So I know it is possible to juggle sort of having a job, doing your academic things, doing your degree, and still having fun. So just don't overdo it with sort of the part-time jobs, because I know some people just work sort of 24/7, and then in their spare time they're doing the degree, and it's not as fun as you can make it. But I know that's not the case for everyone. But yeah.
Yeah, I think both are quite equally valuable. So while I was at university, I had a job where I was, live chat when you go on some websites and you speak in a chat, a messenger chat thing. I was on the other side of that, so it was quite a really useful job during university, and I actually started when I was in college. But because it was online, it means I could do it from uni, from home, from anywhere. But I did that for like 5 years, and just holding a job down for that long looks good on a CV. So that was important. But then also I had friends at uni who also would do their part-time work would be bar work, cafe work, things like that. They'd be absolutely fine. But like Will said, as long as you're not overdoing it, as long as you're using it just as like a bit of a to sort of subsidize your living expenses, but not taking up too much time, it's a good idea. But I had friends on my course who, during the summer, the maths and stats school offer things called summer projects. So there will be some lecturers who will do a research project, and they'll bring a student on to help them out with that, and that's a paid role. So if you're struggling to find internships and stuff like that, which can be a bit of a struggle, there's that as an option. When I was at Atom Bank, one of the things I didn't realize you could do, but there was 2 people in our team who one studied at Newcastle University, one studied at Northumbria, and they actually worked a day in the office for Atom alongside their studies. They didn't do maths, but there's potentially that as an option. So there are companies and that will sort of take students on while they're learning, so you get some valuable in-office experience as well as not neglecting your degree.
I'm just going to add something in there as well from a careers perspective, because I think there's ways of showing whatever experience you have, whether you go down the kind of academic route, whether you go down the kind of working in the cafes job route, of showing what will often be referred to as your soft skills. So obviously you've got your technical skills that Will and Rowan have talked about today, in terms of the kind of math, stats and physics, but you'll have soft skills like team building, communication, things like that. And there's different ways you can show that. It doesn't have to be kind of one size fits all. And I'm reminded of last year I interviewed one of the senior managers in PwC in Ireland, and then one of her opening line was, "I don't need you to know anything, I just need you to have a great attitude." So I think that's a really kind of important think going forward, because a lot of places will train you and teach you as well. So hopefully that helps with that question. We've got a few thank yous coming in as well. And then Ben has a very interesting question. Do you think technology is changing either of your jobs in a good way or a bad way?
I think from my perspective, there's in the short and medium term, it's not really having that much of an impact on us. It's making us less paper-based, which is really good. Everything's just from my laptop now, so that's how we work. But technology sort of, because I work in audit, which is basically verifying a company's financial statements, we go in and we want to prove that everything that they've said is sort of within reason. It's not based on fraud or erroneous judgments or something like that. So technology will take over in a few years, but I think short to medium term, certainly in my career, it's not going to have too much of an impact.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's impacting in a good way for me, because I think it gives the opportunity for remote working, which I think is really useful in this day and age, where it means I don't have to be in the office all the time, or I can work for a company that allows remote working and stuff like that. So it gives you a lot more flexibility on sort of where you want to live and stuff like that, because a lot of data science roles are in London. The Lego roles in London, so I have sort of moved to London on a part-time basis, but you can get opportunities which are fully remote. One of my friends has a job for a company based in London, but it's fully remote, so he still lives up in the northeast. So I think in the sort of industry I'm in, it's really good because it gives you that flexibility to live where you want and not miss out on opportunities. So yeah, I think it's impacting in a good way for me.
We've got another question there from Ellie. What sort of jobs, work experience are available actually working with the university? I'm going to answer this to begin with, but feel free, Rowan and Will, to jump in if you have anything you wanted to add from I suppose from your perspectives. So basically, we have there's a lot, but it's quite varied. So when you join the university, you get access to a system called My Career, and that's for everyone across the university. And there's loads of different kind of jobs and kind of work experience opportunities that will be put on them on a kind of a weekly basis. Some are directly with the university. So say, for example, just give you an example of something now. Within my team, we hire CV advisors. We bring student staff in and train them up how to teach people about CVs, and they're there. But we've also got kind of employers and companies that we work with who might have internships, and they will advertise through us, and you'll get like a kind of a stipend for that, or there might be like a kind of an actual part-time role there, or it could be something in faculty where you're actually in working with on a summer project or an internship, which Rowan was talking about a little earlier on. Do either of you have any experience of that, or have you had friends who did kind of stuff on campus, or you may or may not have something to add to this point, but I just want to give you the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, so I had friends that did the summer projects. They did it basically every summer that they were at university, so they obviously enjoyed it and it was useful. And it's a good way to just make a little bit of money during the summer. I knew there's quite a few voluntary roles and also actually paid roles within the Students' Union as well. So when I was working there for a year, I met a lot of students who either volunteered or had paid roles within the Students' Union. Is JobSoc still a thing?
JobSoc is still a thing, yes.
Yeah, so that's a good way for students to get sort of part-time jobs and stuff like that within the university and the Students' Union as well. So there was lots of opportunities. I knew quite a lot of people who got their roles through sort of things like that. So there's lots of opportunity, but I think basically the best way is to ask to ask and see, because usually someone will be hiring for something. They might not even be advertising just because you ask them. They might go, actually, yeah.
Yeah. On top of that, there's also, you can be a course rep. So on like open days and stuff like that, it's like a paid role. Basically, you're just effectively volunteering, but you're getting paid for it. You just get to show people around sort of the department and answer any questions they might have. And sometimes it's like one-on-one open days where people might have missed the open day, and you can give them a tour and you get paid for that. And as well, I did a peer mentor thing in second and third year. So I was assigned a group of first years just to sort of have a watchful eye over, make sure they were all right. And that was also a paid role, so it's just little and often those kind of jobs. They're not full time, they're not every week, but every now and again you get £10 here or £10 there, so it doesn't hurt.
A lot of that was tied into the stuff I did when I was working at the Students' Union. So that's the academic representation sort of system. So you have course reps and school reps and faculty reps, and they're sort of different levels of voluntary paid, and it's all good experience. It all looks good on your CV. So there's lots of opportunities for that.
I think that one of the key messages around particularly around the work experience jobs sort of situation is that you have choice. It's a big university. There's lots of different things. There's some people only want to get work experience related to their faculty and the academic side. Some people, want a break from the studying and want to do something completely different just to give themselves a bit of an outlet. So that choice is there. Are there any sorts of apprenticeships available for physics students?
Especially for physics, not necessarily just with the uni, but once you graduate, there's so many opportunities, sort of grad schemes and everything. The apprenticeships, there was a friend of mine, Aidan, he did an apprenticeship with a wind farm, I think in the northwest, just off the coast, and it was really interesting. He loved it. So yeah, there's plenty of it. It just depends on what area you want to go into. There's all sorts in sort of engineering that you can go in from a physics background, and yeah, there's plenty. You can go into finance internship if you wanted, like me. It's there's all sorts. So
what I think is really great is that you've both painted this really holistic picture of things, because you've talked about kind of the academic side and the courses and your respective positions. You talked about the social side and how it's been great, kind of making friends and traveling and all these cool things as well. And then where it's kind of led you to I suppose what led you to your respective careers and all the rest of it. But did you have a view that it was going to be so holistic when you first went into university, or what was your viewpoint at that stage?
Yeah, I didn't know what it was going to be like at all. I think after a few weeks in first semester of first year, I was a bit on the fence about university, to be honest. The modules weren't lining up in the way that I wanted to. So I was like, I'm not really enjoying this as much as I could. Mainly just because it was stuff that I already knew. It was like the introduction to maths, that they get you all onto the same level. I was like, I don't want to be doing this again. It can't be like this every year. But I stuck it out till after Christmas, mainly because my friends, I was enjoying being up there. And then the degree just took a whole different sort of path, and it was just much more interesting, much more enjoyable. And I'm just really glad that I got the experience that I did.
Rowan, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of my first year at university, so it was finding my feet in a new city, new place. So I kind of formed a group of friends on my course, and that's who I spent all my time with. And it was either doing course stuff or just going out with those people, going and doing stuff with those people. And then I kind of, after first year, I kind of tried to be more adventurous and try new things and meet new people and do different activities. And it was kind of, once I got into that second year of sort of spreading my wings a bit, getting involved in lots of different areas, like playing sport and being involved at the Students' Union and joining different societies and meeting different people, that I think that's where my university experience really blossomed. I'd enjoyed my first year, but then second, third, and fourth year they're the years that I really remember as being some of my favorite times, because you do so much with so many different people and try so many different things, and you kind of don't realize how they do actually feed into developing you as a person and developing your skill sets and stuff to going into a career. You don't really notice it until you sit in an interview with an employer and they ask you questions, and then you think, oh, actually, yeah, I did do that. I organized an event for the society I was part of. That's a relevant experience that I can bring to this interview and tell you about it and tell you how I resolved a problem and stuff like that. You kind of don't realize how all this stuff feeds into it until you actually come to that point where you're sat in the interview or you're preparing for the interview, and you realize you've got answers to all these questions that they're going to ask you, that you might not have had if you hadn't sort of jumped in and tried to experience as much as you can while you're at uni.
Rowan, I just want to pick up on something you said a little earlier on. Correct me if I misheard you, but I think you said, I think it was your first role that you went into after uni that you realized you didn't quite enjoy it as much as you thought, or wasn't what you thought. What was your kind of thought process at the time, and how did you kind of handle that experience?
Yeah, so when I first got the role, I thought it would be what I wanted to do. I got into the role and I was there for a couple of months, and I started to realize that yes, this is interesting, but it's not exactly what I want, and I know the role that I would rather have. So I did some more research into data science as a role, whereas I was an insights analyst in my first role. Did more research into data science, what the sort of skills required are, what the sort of work tends to be, and I knew that was the actual role that I thought best fitted my skill set and what I wanted to go into. So I didn't panic, I didn't stress about it. I just knew that I wanted to go into that role. So I had a steady job, but at the same time I was applying for other roles when I could see them, when I found a data science role that was suitable for what I wanted to do. So I'd apply for them, interview for them, and then I got the job at Atom, and it coincidentally that wasn't quite exactly what I wanted to do either. Whereas now I'm at Lego, it's exactly what I wanted to do. So sometimes it takes a couple of goes. And one thing I would say is don't be afraid to jump ship and go to a different job. Don't feel like once you're in whatever your first role is, you have to stick to it, because you don't, and it's all experience. And if you want to go into something completely different after 2 years of working there, I can't even think of an example, be a film director or something. You've got 2 years of experience working in a career-based environment and stuff. So it all feeds into it. And don't worry, you can always change. But change when you're 50 as well. Don't feel like you're stuck in it.
I think it's just as useful to find stuff that you don't enjoy sort of quite early on, because I know 2 of my friends, they started 2 grad schemes and they went into them thinking, this is the job for me, like I'm going to love this so much. Within a month they both quit, they hated it. But it's just as useful to find out that you don't like something, so don't panic if you graduate and you get a job, you think it's your dream job and suddenly you hate it. Like you'll find something better, you always will.
100% agree with both those sentiments. We're coming up to the last kind of 5 minutes or so. Before we start to finish up, what advice would you give yourselves now? Or maybe what mistakes did you make that you would avoid if possible?
I'd probably follow a similar path to the one I did, to be honest. Like every decision I made that sort of led me to uni was a good one in my head, because I ended up here, I ended up pretty happy. So but yeah, I'd definitely tell myself maybe consider uni a bit earlier and sort of put in the work. As long as you're enjoying what you're doing, I'd recommend carrying on.
Yeah, I'd say something very similar. I think the advice I would have given myself is when you join it in first year, try and embrace it more than you did. I was kind of a bit focused down solely only on my degree, only on the people I've met on my course, and that was it. Whereas I enjoyed it much more once I did a lot more stuff. So if I'd done that from first year, that would be my advice to myself.
I love that. They're two solid bits of advice, very, very similar themed. And thank you both so much for joining us here today and for talking to your experience. Will and Rowan, would you like to say anything else before we finish? I'll leave you both with the last word.
Just if anyone does have any other questions or anything that they didn't want to ask today, I think we're both on the LinkedIn group that you're all in, so you can always add us and send us a message if you need.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same. Yeah, thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, thank you for your time.